Welcome to GenealCymru. This video is a compilation of my 5 best Welsh history and genealogy shorts from 2022. These shorts are great for sharing small bits of information, but they make only a couple cents in ad revenue. So if you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out my Patreon, linked below, and make a small contribution. There's some exclusive content there, historical maps, more videos, and you can even get your name included at the end of each video as a thank you for supporting. Let's get into it. Number 5. Much like today, a lot of the domestic work in the past fell on women. Though what we might think of as traditionally women's work is only a shadow of what women did in reality. A group of women in the rural parish of Llangybi, Cardiganshire in the late 1700s spoke to the controversial bard Iolo Morgannwg, who wrote that women do all the works of husbandry, threshing, grubbing, hedging, ditching, plowing, carting, mowing, etc., etc. A woman told me that by the labors of husbandry, she brought up 4 children, put them to school, and maintained a drunken husband who never brought her a single farthing. Now that's a lot of work. So when you look at your next census and see your woman ancestor's occupation as farmer's wife, take a moment to remember just how much work went into that, and how much of the actual farming she did herself. Number 4. If your ancestors were literate, they were probably reading something, so look in the old books and journals. Early printing worked differently to how it does now, with authors printing a small number of copies for their subscribers. Sometimes those subscriber lists were printed in the book. This 1859 book, The Bardic Works of Tegid, was owned by my ancestors Frederick Davis and Margaret Walters of Cardiganshire, Wales. It was also owned by Napoleon's nephew. This 1791 book, a short and plain exposition of the Old Testament, was owned by my ancestor, the Reverend Benjamin Davis, as well as by the famous Llangollen couple, Miss Ponsonby and Lady Eleanor Butler. These books will give you a snapshot of your ancestors' life. You'll see what was on their bookshelf, their interests, where they lived at the time of printing, and it'll show you what reading communities they were in. Number 3. Our 19th century Welsh sheep farming ancestors loved their flocks so much that it bewildered their capitalist gentleman contemporaries. Well into the slow decline of the woolen trade, Thomas Jones criticized the rural shepherds' business practices. Jones believes that to profit you had to keep lambs only a short time and sell them for mutton, but he said that the farmers kept their sheep till they were old, selling their wool year after year. Keep the sheep to get old, they will decrease under your hands, Jones wrote. This cardinal mistake is made oftenest by small sheep farmers, who know and love every sheep they possess. You see, for our farming ancestors, their animals weren't just products or abstract profit margins. They were also living beings that they cared for day in, day out for years. And those kind of relationships are meaningful and laid the foundation for how they practiced business. What kinds of animals did your ancestors have? Number 2. Here's the tombstone of my ancestor, the Bard and Reverend David Davis, taken by a Find a Grave volunteer. If we zoom into the impressive cross memorial next to him, you'll see that all of the text is visible. This is the tombstone of David and Lettice Lloyd of Bryn Llefrith. My David Davis and this David Lloyd were actually co-ministers at Llwynrhydowen Chapel in Llandyssul, and even had connections through marriage. What this image taught me is that when you find pictures on Find a Grave, look at the original image and zoom in to see tiny details. Always check to see if you can read the surrounding tombstones, and when you're requesting pictures, you can even ask for a wide shot showing nearby graves. You never know who your ancestors will be buried next to. They might just be an important part of the story. Number 1. One of the things that people often get wrong about Welsh genealogy is that just because you share a surname with someone doesn't mean that you're related to them. Like I show in my latest full-length video, for many people you only have to go back a few generations before you start finding ancestors who weren't even using surnames. And with how few surnames were actually in use in Wales, you get surnames like Williams, where in 1881 there were well over 150,000 of them, from Anglesey to Swansea to London, all totally different lineages. Even in a tiny 19th century village, chances are that two people sharing the same surname are completely unrelated. In reality, when it comes to finding your Welsh ancestors, surnames really aren't that helpful. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in more, why not check out my last video on migration in 19th century Britain.